If you'd call us to order, we'll call to order and roll call, please.
Veranda,
Here.
Castroville,
Here.
County of Monterey, Delray Oaks,
Here.
Marina Coast,
Here.
Monterey,
Here.
Pacific Grove,
Here.
Salinas, Sand City,
Here.
Seaside.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We go to agenda item 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Could I ask Director Hibino if you wouldn't mind leading us?
Please join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Director Hibino. We go on to agenda item 4, additions to the agenda. Directors, any additions to the agenda? Staff, any additions?
No.
All right, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Go out to the public.
Is for general public comment?
We'll get there.
Okay,
We'll get there.
talking about the approval.
Yes, that's all. All right, seeing none, roll call, please. Actually, we have no one on Zoom, so we can just do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Please show, what is it, 9 ayes? 0 abstained, 1 absent. Now we go to agenda item 6, public comments. Anyone wishing to address the board on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so for not more than 3 minutes. Comments on any other matter listed on the agenda are welcome at the time the matter is being considered by the board.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My name is Bill Lipe, resident of Monterey County. And I was having a conversation recently, which reminded me of something that happened, I think it was last summer, where there were some issues with CSIP and they didn't have any water. They were producing water and water was going out, but there were pressure issues, I think, in the CSIP system at that time. And I recall this from, I can't remember which water agency meeting it was, but it was one of them. And I think it was the Basin Advisory Committee. And so this recent conversation came up and I think there's an audit being done. So I don't know, apologies if it's on the agenda already, but I think some in the public will be very interested in what those audit results show and making sure that, you know, water's going where it's supposed to be and isn't being wasted in some way. And I have faith that the audit's going to prove things out. And so I just wanted to raise that as a general issue tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public, particularly if you're coming in by Zoom, *9, I believe, will raise your hand.
I don't see any raised hands from the public.
All right, thank you very much. We move on to a presentation, agenda item 7. Staff, please.
Thank you, Chair Moore. So we would like to just do a brief update on the renewable energy project that we've been doing in conjunction with Regen Monterey. I know there's been a number of ad hoc committee meetings with Ron and Scott as members of M1W, and then the three board members from Regen Monterey. So we just wanted to do an update as the project's been proceeding now for, well, it's coming up on 9 months, 10 months. And there's been some progress and we have a more clear look at the schedule ahead. I'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce Felipe Melchor, the GM at Regen Monterey, and let him speak a few words and give a brief introduction. Ultimately, the presentation will be done by Derek Wurst, who is with Black & Veatch and is our program manager, if you will, for renewable energy right now. Oh, and thank you, Tammy. And Gary Darling with Darling H2O is on the line. He's been assisting us with the renewable energy project now for a couple of years, which I'm sure for him feels like a decade or so.
Good evening, board. My name is Felipe Melchor.
I'm the general manager at Regen Monterey. We endeavored into this renewable energy project feasibility results to look at what is the best uses for our byproducts between the two agencies, and how do we have alignment between the two agencies to save some money for the ratepayer along the way with good decision making and looking at the strategies of the future. So I want to say thank you to the partners first and foremost, Black and Veatch, GHD, Monterey One Water, the two boards that represent the support of the endeavors to look at what the future and the transition into that future looks like for both agencies. And I'm really excited to report that we should be seeing the majority of the findings from this renewable study around items that we can better do with our byproducts before we make decisions on them in December. So I look forward to come back and work with the two boards and see what is next for us in that next step of results and studies that we can use to be comprehensive about the decisions both agencies are going to make, whether that's singular or plural. There will be items that they can work on together, and there will be items that could be worked on independently as well. So I'm pretty excited to report that a few months away. It's been about a year in its making. We're really excited, and I appreciate the two staffs. They've had to endure a normal operation, get the regular job done, and then still think about what the future lies for us and trying to make the best critical decisions and be available at all times like we are right now, getting ready to support Johanna on a joint endeavor on a grant. And that needs to be submitted tomorrow. So people are looking at it right now as we sit and speak. And it takes that kind of effort from both agencies and the staffs to continue to deliver so we can get the results we're looking for. And thank you for having me tonight. And it's a pleasure meeting you all. Thank you.
Directors, any questions for Mr. Melchor? Thank you very much, Mr. Melchor, and we do appreciate, oh, sorry.
Just what is the overall timeframe? I mean, beyond this phase one, what do the other phases look like? And maybe this might be something that
From a general manager position, I've kind of had this conversation with Paul is, how long is it going to take for us to see something that is actually could be built and constructed? Hypothetically, it could be 5 years. We can fast track it and do something sooner. There are items that will be included in the feasibility that we're working on already. So those won't stop the pathway for that. But all the brand new stuff that we see, it could take some time to turn around because you'll need another round of study, and then you'll need the build and design plan, which will take some time for both agencies, and the funding to move forward with any of these items could be very comprehensive at the same time. It's a great question.
And Felipe is being somewhat humble about him and his staff. They're in the middle of constructing a direct line from their cogen facility to the advanced water purification facility, which is actually sort of the first step of all this. It's the renewable energy to power the AWPF, and then it'll expand from there. But certainly what he mentioned in the 5-year timeframe, there's a lot of stuff that can happen, whether it be microgrid, organics energy. Derek will get into it, but there's battery storage, potentially wind. There's a lot of opportunities to reduce the energy costs for both sets of ratepayers, which are substantially the same.
Thank you for being here and appreciate your partnership.
Yep. Thank you.
Director Garcia Arizola.
Thank you. I have a question when it comes, sorry. You mentioned that today there was a grant application that was due today. How far does that push phase one of the project, or does it not have an impact on it?
It's a grant that could yield us a significant amount of cash flow for the planning piece of what we want to do in the next phase.
Gotcha.
So it's already starting to look and capture. Part of all of this is looking at the grants that are available along the way to apply to the cost for either agency. So that's what we're doing now. It'll be submitted sometime tomorrow after it's been reviewed and edited. So we're
Awesome.
excited about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mr. Melchor, and we do appreciate your working cooperatively with our staff. We know that sometimes agencies with different authorities and different objectives sometimes rub one another a little bit the wrong way. So we appreciate
You're welcome.
spirit of cooperation here.
It does help that Felipe is a Raiders fan also. So with that, if it's okay, Derek can come on up here, as well as this. I believe we have a short presentation, and you should have before you an 11 by 17 of the project schedule of this first phase.
Wonderful. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you today. My name is Derek Worst. I'm a project manager with Black and Veatch, and our company was retained to help provide services to support the facilitation of this first phase of the Monterey Renewable Energy Projects. This project is looking to address, some of the ways to enhance energy resiliency for your facilities, as well as the regulatory drivers, which are really changing the way in which we're addressing the diversion of organic wastes from landfills and looking at the beneficial reuse of those waste byproducts and an overall effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So the renewable energy projects is an overall vision to combine the effort between both Monterey One Water and Regen to pull resources and enhance and improve energy efficiency at both facilities by sharing resources and generating capabilities to overall improve your reliability and reduce costs for the ratepayers. As shown in this graphic, you already have a variety of energy generating resources or distributed energy resources, DERs, that are already existing in your facilities. The Monterey Renewable Energy Projects really seeks to optimize your current capabilities and add in additional viable energy generating resources to your existing portfolio. Having this diverse portfolio of energy generating systems are helpful for enhancing resiliency for a grid that's already taxed due to age and it's vulnerable to natural disasters. So the enhanced resiliency comes by way of connecting these DERs or distributed energy resources together to form microgrids. And microgrids can operate independently of the grid to continue to provide your energy to your facilities, and it lowers your overall risk for operations. This slide here shows the overall project schedule. And to your question, Director Williamson, this is, as you can see, we're in the first phase of this study to identify the opportunities for organics to energy, as well as look at the feasibility of developing a microgrid for the facilities. The next phase of this study, for which the grant is being kind of written currently to help support, is to further refine those and provide the details of your preferred approach for those facilities. This is then followed by permitting and design. And ultimately, there's various ways in which you can bring these projects to fruition through different delivery methods, but you'll get into construction and have projects built within the decade. This is a zoomed in view of this phase one study schedule. This may be in your packet for a little bit more visibility, but you can tell we're kind of in the middle of this phase one study at this point. The phase one study is composed of two main project elements, an organics to energy component, as well as a microgrid feasibility component. The organics to energy component is comprised of a number of technical documents, each to kind of identify what the existing conditions are and some of the opportunities for new facilities to help support the ability to bring organics and use that for energy production. The microgrid feasibility builds on what Paul had mentioned, an existing project that's underway for a 21 kilovolt interconnection between between Regen's landfill gas generators and the advanced water purification facility. So by the end of this calendar year, we will have concluded with this first phase. This is all underpinned with a economics evaluation, because ultimately we're not doing things for appearance's sake. I mean, they have to make sense financially. As I mentioned, the two main components of this technical study for phase one are an organics to energy study, or O2E, As you can see, there's a number of technical documents that help support the overall feasibility report. These have been published by GHD, the consultant that's been retained to perform this part of the phase one work. And we've already received some of their technical memorandum in that regard. The microgrid builds upon the existing project to establish the interconnection between your two facilities, as well as take it to a point at which you've got a 10% level of design or conceptual design, if you will, for it.
Hi, this is Johanna with Monterey One Water. We currently lost the internet at the admin building, so we're trying to reconnect the meeting. It'll take a few minutes for us to get back into the Wi-Fi. Okay, they're looking into the internet issue. We will resume the meeting at around 6:30. So give us a few minutes to look into this issue.
Will we get the displays, the monitors here? Will that come back?
Oh, she's, okay. They're trying, yeah.
Okay.
So
So they
I'm,
can hear us at home. You just can't see.
okay, so the public knows,
The public can hear us.
we had some glitch occur with the line that actually brings the internet to our building. We've rebuilt a connection using individual hotspots of individual members. So we will attempt to continue. I know we can't see your presentation. Can you talk us through it, you think?
Yes, I can.
And they'll work on getting the projection back
And-
momentarily.
If I
Isn't it in
may.
the Isn't it in the packet?
It's in the packet and Russell is trying to get that set up for here. Can the members of the public see it?
Yes.
Okay, so those on Zoom can see the presentation.
Okay.
We just can't right now.
They see us.
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. I only had probably a few slides to go here. This is kind of getting into the meat and potatoes, as Paul likes to talk about, this organic to energy study documents. We've received 4 of about half a dozen different documents related to the O2E study. The first of which was a high solids organic waste processing technical memorandum. It looks at, exploring the options for the processing of high solids organic wastes. And then the next technical document was the organic waste characterization, trying to really determine what is the amount of organic waste and contamination that's coming from both residential and commercial sources. The GHD team also evaluated each facility in detail to determine what are the existing conditions, what are some of the opportunities for new facilities, and that was pulled into a performance and baseline design criteria technical memorandum. And the one that we most recently received was evaluating opportunities for disposal of biosolids that don't include going to a landfill. So what are some of the beneficial uses of biosolids? The next, yes.
Sorry.
Oh, that's the slide.
Public can see
The
this.
public can see that? Fantastic, yeah. And if we want to advance, I'll advance to the next one here, which is the component that is to develop a microgrid for the agencies. This is a strategic kind of a design in which it capitalizes on an existing project to have an interconnection between Regen's landfill gas generators to the advanced water purification facility. That medium voltage project is already underway, and that will provide the ability to transmit the power and sell power between the two agencies.
Recording in progress.
GHD has looked at different opportunities to do what they call nested microgrids or networked microgrids, so that each entity can operate independent of each other on their own microgrid, but also collectively together. One of the key components that came out of this study was to investigate the legality of being able to sell power between public agencies. We had this vetted through legal, and their contributions have determined that the public agencies can clear that hurdle of what they call the California Public Utilities Rule 218, which is an over-the-fence ruling which allows public agencies such as yourselves to sell power to each other. So that was one of the main considerations that had to be evaluated as part of this study. And I finish with kind of a quote. I know you can't see it on screen, but it's electricity is just lightning organized. And that was by George Carlin, a famous electrician, or comedian, if you will. But it kind of is akin to where we're at with this study overall. I feel in some ways, this is a lot about pulling together a lot of different inputs and focusing that, if we have the right vision, it becomes that lightning rod to really provide electric results. So I'm excited about where we are at this point of the study. And we're, looking forward to the next time when we can come back and have a briefing with this board. So I'd like to just, thank you for your time, and I'm willing to entertain any potential questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Wirris. Any questions from directors?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Yes,
Director
just,
Carbone.
thank you. Just a question, so with, CPUC, Rule 218, it allows power to be sold between both agencies, so Monterey One.
Correct.
Does it also allow it to be sold back to the grid?
Yes.
Okay.
So currently, Regen sells excess power through the California Independent System Operator to, the grid for all the excess power that's provided. The new configuration will allow Regen to sell directly to Monterey One Water. So in the event that either facility produces power in excess of their needs, that can be sold back to the grid. But one of the disadvantages is the price for which the grid will purchase that power at wholesale rates. So you are currently paying retail, if you will, for the price of electricity, in which now you'll be able to broker, that, rate together to determine what will be a fair price and, reduce your overall energy costs in this arrangement. The microgrid is designed to allow flexibility for bidirectional energy, to go from Monterey One Water or from Regen to Monterey One Water. So it also is being looked at to expand to allow future build out conditions, integrating not just the advanced water purification facility, but the regional treatment facility, and then the, forgive me, the Salinas SD.
Salinas River Diversion Facility.
Salinas River Diversion Facility, sorry. All of these will ultimately be built out as far as the ultimate configuration of a microgrid. So,
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Director Habino.
So talking about, this power, is it kind of like what consumers had gone through, like NEM 1.0, 2.0? Is it the same for small producers as well?
so the net metering energy NEM tariffs apply to, like, some of those who are looking to sell their power excess back, and they get that credited to their bills. It's a bit different in that, you will end up being able to generate your own, tariffs, if you will, for the energy sales independent of what PG&E would assign or levy. But you would still, look at having, say, PG&E as a source of backup power, in which then, they will look at what tariffs may apply for your particular situation. So excess power will be sold back. It's either through the CAISO, the California Independent System Operator, and the wholesale market, or through a NEM, net energy metering type of configuration, in which basically it's a balance of the metering at the end of the year, in which you will have power produced, and subtract out what you may have used. So.
Yeah, because I think they would be interested in, a lot of times because of the solar during the daytime, it sounds like a lot of these technologies will be pretty much 24/7.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the nice things about the cogeneration facilities is they operate 24/7.
Yeah.
And, there will be opportunities specifically for Regen where they, operate more when they're receiving, that, that excess power will continue to be fed to Monterey One Water. So, but like I mentioned earlier, it is about having like a diverse portfolio of different, energy options. It may include solar, wind, backup battery energy storage. So all of these things kind of contribute to help, get an overall energy that is going to be something that will be able to power your facilities 100% of the time.
Thank you.
Director Garcia Arizola.
Thank you. When it comes to the microgrid, there's no battery solar storage incorporated into this, is there? Or the
That
reason I
is-
ask is because, you know, when we faced the winter storms this year, there was a lot of power outages and systems were down, and I know that can play a huge critical issue here.
Certainly, that's one of the things we're looking at, but we don't know as of yet.
Okay.
We've talked about, does battery storage make sense? If so, how much? Even going so far as looking at what we can do for the community. Is there portable batteries that we could, roll out to critical locations or help with the county EOCs and things like that? So that's sort of that holistic look of trying to funnel down on what makes sense, not just for Regen and Monterey One Water, but for the community.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Can we also sell, if essentially excess power you can sell back to PG&E, but can you also sell to the Monterey Community Power System, whatever it's?
3CE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3CE. They would, certainly be brought in as a partner, potentially as a power purchase agreement. That would be one of the potential options that would be worthy to explore. I think they're always looking for, renewable energies to help complement their portfolio and provide that for their, customers.
And we
would-
have met with them, and I don't know how many months ago it was, probably 6 months ago now. We did meet with them just to talk about the project in general and the timing, and they said, please keep us in the loop and engaged.
And if we did that, how would pricing be set? And would that have to go through the CPUC?
I suppose, yeah, CPUC would probably have some final determination on it, but negotiations would probably be made between C3 and Monterey One Water or Regen, as the case may be.
Yeah, it's probably not unlike what Regen has done with PG&E, because they've been selling for the last 16 years, 20 years. Oh my gosh. 30 years. So same sort of thing was where they've negotiated with PG&E. It's been approved by the CPUC, and then that's ongoing.
So the second question is more for just our sense of what potential is there and for the public to understand that a little better. But it is a little hard to ask this question because power needs of Monterey One Water and electricity needs of Regen vary. They sometimes vary by time of day. I suspect they vary by time of day more for Regen than perhaps for us. But we know that over the course of a year, they also vary with us. For instance, when the CSIP is shut down, say in December and January. So there's peaks and troughs, but the question is, just on an annual basis of the amount of kilowatt hours Regen uses overall and the amount of kilowatt hours that Monterey One Water uses overall, what percentage of that is now being generated and what would that go to potentially with a complete microgrid?
Well, I think initial indications are that, all of the power that is produced could be used on site and you'll end up having excess to sell back. There's ample energy sources for your current facilities. Monterey produces enough to, for your own needs. And then complemented with Regen's resources of like 5 megawatts or maybe up to 6 if they build out fully. That will be more than enough. If AWPF is expanded, there will still be some energy needs in the future to support that. But at least in this early indication, it seems as though all of the energy sources can be powered internally.
So, and just to segment for a little bit, so we have 3 cogen engines. We produce about 90% of our electricity. We still pay PG&E. We need demand charges for when we need it. And of course, that 10%. Regen produces enough energy pretty much for all their needs, and they've been selling back to PG&E. So, however, SVRP and SRDF, SVRP for us, we have the solar array that feeds SVRP directly. SRDF is separate. Pure Water Monterey, as Derek mentioned, those demands are increasing, hence the reason we've reached across to the neighbors to help fuel it. Part of the study is looking at those demands, those the cycle throughout a year, that when the demands hit, and then what our energy production capacity could be. Not just electricity, but also just gas. Do we do some of the digester gas going to Regen's CNG facility for their haulers? Or is there a way to go directly to pipe to sell back to PG&E? So what is the best and highest use of the resources we have while still meeting the needs of the two facilities? I don't know
Okay.
if that sort of complements what Derek had mentioned also.
No, that's helpful and good to see we have that much potential to.
There really is. It's a unique project, and there is a lot of potential. And the decisions we're making now will direct that. Like, to what degree are we going to work together, accepting organics or separating organics, new cogen engines, new technologies? Things are changing so rapidly in this space that it's great to have the study coming through and be able to hopefully refine it moving into the future.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. If there are no other questions, we're good.
All right. Thank you very much.
All
Thank you,
right,
Derek.
Mr. Worst, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Unless you had anything, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Darling.
All
All right, in that case, we move on to the consent agenda. Do directors wish to pull anything from consent? Go ahead, Director Church, which one?
F.
F. Oh, F. I did not hear.
That's all right. I didn't speak clearly.
It's all right. Are there any other? All right, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you, Director Smith. Is there a second? Thank you, Director Church. We have a second. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on consent?
I don't see anybody.
I'm not seeing anyone. All right. All in favor of approval of consent, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Please show 9 ayes, 1 absent. Thank you very much. We go to 8F.
And I know I brought this up before about the low income program and its underutilization, which is probably is really way underutilized. It's only about 1% of the 200,000. And if I want to make sure I understand this right here, so there's 24 people, correct, that utilized it, and there were like 600 or 471 that applied. Am I understanding that right?
So basically, yeah, let me take a look at the stats. Hold on one second.
Because the back page has some different numbers.
Oh,
and
you know
I'm
what?
trying
I think we got the June. I apologize. I think we got those are like the year-end numbers. So yeah, the report covers July basically. And yeah, there was only like 24.
Okay. On the other ones was the year. Okay.
That was for the year. And I apologize for that.
I wasn't understanding what was going on there.
Exactly. I apologize for that. We kind of did 2 reports at the same time. But yeah, basically, there's 24 that's applied just for the month of July. One of the things I'm going to look to do is in September to bring to BPC and then ultimately to the board to propose some different options that would expand the use of the program. I've been working with outreach on this. We've looked at a number of different entities and kind of how they do their customer assistance program. And so we're going to propose some different options that I think would really dramatically increase the use of these funds. So
yeah, and I only bring it up because as we reached out for the new billing process, there's all these people that are throwing up red flags and concerns that they can't afford it. And then I see this isn't being utilized. So something's not fitting in there. Right. So that's all I had to comment on.
Mike or Fred, can you speak to what Supervisor Church is saying, just the difficulties in qualifying?
yeah, so right now, basically the way the program works is we've kind of taken up for administrative purposes, we've done it simplistically. So if the person is eligible under basically the PG&E's CARES Act, thank you very much, their CARES Act program, they will qualify for our program as well too. So that makes it really simple. The person can just say, yeah, here's my certification that I'm under PG&E CARES, and we'll sign them up basically. So
do we have an estimate of how many people that might involve?
I'm sorry, can you say
Do you
that
have
again?
a potential estimate of how many people might actually sign up using that process?
I don't know. I don't know a way to really find that out. No, unfortunately. Thanks.
Director Church, would you care to move to receive the low-income sewer assistance program update?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second, and then I accept the comment. if I may.
Yes, please.
I think one of the things that we've discussed as we look at potentially expanding the program and just kind of re-envisioning what the future looks like is how do we potentially expand those who qualify? And so I'd be interested in seeing where that goes once that comes back, but I do recall that being part of the discussion too. So I just kind of wanted to throw that into the discourse.
And that's an excellent point. One of the things we may talk about is, and we'll talk about what other entities do, but obviously we use the CARES program right now. One additional option might be maybe potentially just getting like a copy of their tax return, which would show their AGI. That could be another option. We've also potentially one agency, what they do, they work with nonprofit housing agencies basically. And so obviously they just kind of give the monies to them and then they work with their tenants. And that could be another potential option. The third thing, when we mentioned this to the board earlier, is basically increasing the amount of the assistance. Right now, we give 2 months worth of assistance. I would actually propose increasing that probably to about 8 months to kind of offset basically the increase, of what goes to the tax roll. So yeah, we'll basically present to both BPC and the boards kind of some options, and then kind of for the board to give us direction how they'd like us to go.
God bless you.
Thank you, Brett.
Oh, one thing I want to say too, it'll be general direction too. We'll be working with BB&K on some more specifics after we get the general direction.
Director Carbone.
Yes, I wanted to say that I get out in the community and I volunteer like at the food banks and that. And a lot of the times they have, locations in different cities where people's going to get, go get their food that, it's hard for them to afford food. And sometimes they put PG&E representatives out there, to sign people up for CARES. So is there a way that we could work with one of the agencies who's already doing the outreach? And a lot of those people probably are under the tax, don't even have to file for taxes because their income is so low. They don't have to file if they're under a certain amount of income. So I'm just thinking that, maybe is there a way that we could do some outreach and find out who's doing that, or if they're going to be, it's during the month, there's locations all over in all the cities that maybe that might be a way to outreach.
We see Mr. McCullough diligently taking a note, so.
And Chair, that's a great point. And maybe you're already doing it, but are we able to get a list from PG&E of customers that are already in the CARES program? I mean, I don't know if that's even possible, but.
No, I believe we've tried. What they will do is if we give them a name, they will say yay or nay that they are in the CARES, but they will not give us the entire list. Rachel, can you confirm that?
Come to the mic, Rachel.
Obviously, PG&E has their own privacy policies related to sharing of data. So kind of what they have given us is relatively general. And it's hard to pinpoint because power or energy tends to be a utility that renters commonly pay themselves. All those lists of accounts from PG&E, we don't know if they're actually our customers. Because again, we know a number of our community members rent. And since that is a utility bill they often pay, I think that there is some assumption, recognizing it's an assumption, that many of them on the CARES Act don't qualify. And that's another reason why I think, as Fred was describing, it's really critical, I think, that when we relook at the program, we're looking at ways customers can qualify. Because right now, I think it's pretty limiting in where that support goes. With recognition, though, that we do, bill property owners, and it's only through currently the 6% of residential property owners who having another party pay the bill.
Yeah, I would just think it would be very helpful to have that list. And, you know, I don't know what the privacy requirements are for PG&E, but
Yeah.
I mean, if it's to help someone out, I'm sure those customers wouldn't mind that information being provided to our agency if it's going to save them a few bucks, you know?
Yeah, it's something that we can look further into with recognition that there may be some kind of authorization those customers would have to provide to ensure alignment. So it really would require us to look further into.
All right, if they're Director Garcia Arizola.
Thank you. I know we mentioned CARE and FARA. I mean, I know we just mentioned CARE, but have we also tried expanding it to FARA and medical baseline?
That is, as we've done our initial research, we do see other, especially like in the Bay Area, entities using that. So as part of this evaluation, yes, I think we are going to explore, are there other baselines that we could use to have an efficient administrative process, but expand eligibility requirements. So I think it'll both be piggybacking on opportunities out there or potentially, as Fred said, evaluating like internal procedures or utilizing a third party for verification.
Gotcha, because I know CARE is 20% or more monthly discount, and FARA is an 18% monthly discount for customers as well. So I think, you know, tackling our lower income community members, but also helping out our middle class or lower middle class community members would make a difference as well.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think that those are all going to be included as part of our outreach, because that is, as we've been out in the community and as our customer service team throughout the years has talked with customers, there is that threshold in our county. What is considered maybe middle class here is different than in another county, right? And in recognition of that high cost of living, especially here along the Central Coast region, making sure we're looking, I think, at diverse levels that truly reflect the real cost of living here is pretty critical to the overall impact of that program.
One of the things I want to mention too, and I'll look to include this on future reports. We're also participating in the state's what's called LIWAP program, basically, which is for their low assistance program. The great news about that program, they recently announced they've extended that to being eligible through December of this year. So that's something I'll look actually to add on to this report as far as the dollars that for our agency we're getting that are benefiting those customers as well too.
I'm wondering if we're able to reach out to Central Coast Energy Services that do LIHEAP enrollments for low-income community members. And they also provide battery solar storage for people in need of medical baseline. So I think having that partnership, since they're already conducting the outreach, it would be a hitting two birds with one stone type of thing.
Yeah. So we did an initial just an initial kind of assessment with United Way Monterey County, who initially established that partnership actually back when it truly was CARES Act funding and related to the pandemic, not PG&E CARES Act, just FYI, both CARES, but separate CARES programs. And so we started with United Way, and we know now they're managing the state program, Central Coast Energy Services. Thank you. So yes, we started with United Way, but we do plan to expand our communications with those who may be able to offer that administrative service for us and who are already familiar with reading tax returns and making those assessments.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely a good idea.
All right, if there are no other questions from directors, we'll go to the public. If they wish to comment on agenda item 8F. And seeing none, we'll bring back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Please show 9 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstained, 1 absent. And we move on to committee reports. Budget and personnel was canceled, so nothing to say under 9A. 9B, projects and plans. Director Church, please.
So we met, discussed complicated process of how to reallocate votes. I think Paul's going to give a little brief review on that. I think the real challenges here is that any change takes takes unanimous approval. And, you know, I think it was, you know, I expressed, I think the other members on the committee sort of, I don't hope I'm not reading into everybody, but I think we're all somewhat concerned that we go down this path, we open this up, discuss it, and if there's not really a will to really go through and change this, all we've done is really kind of spin our wheels. So I hope there's a path here somewhere. But Paul, do you want to, do you have anything you want to add on to this?
No, but I can certainly, under information items, there's a staff report in there, and I can go a little more in detail. One of the things the committee did request of staff is to provide an update to the entire board, which we'll do today. Set another projects and planning committee meeting, in which point we will bring back some further vetted options than what we had 3 years ago, and hopefully bring it back to the full board in September. I think that was the committee's wish, is let's push this in the September, October board meeting timeframe for a full discussion and hopefully a vote of some sort.
All right. Does anyone care to make a motion to receive the PPC draft minutes of August 15th?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Director Smith. Seconded by Director Carbone. Well, to the public, if they wish to comment. All right, seeing none, bring it back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? We show 9 ayes, 0 abstained, 1 absent, 0 noes. We move on to Recycled Water Committee.
Approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Smith. Motion by Director Williamson, seconded by Director Smith. Go out to the public for comment. All right, seeing none, bring it back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Please show 9 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstained, 1 absent. We move on to action items. 10A. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mr. Board Chair, members of the board. I'm Tom Correttis with Engineering Services, Associate Engineer. I'm here to speak to you today about 2 of our a combined large project for pump station rehabilitation. That would be CP 330, the Monterey pump station upgrades, and CP 331, Seaside pump station upgrades. In March 2022, after a competitive RFP process, the board approved a design contract with Carrillo Engineers for the upgrade and replacement project for the Monterey pump station, or MOPS, and Seaside pump station SEPS upgrades project. These projects are comprised of several constituent projects that amount to a pretty large scale overhaul of both of these pump stations. These projects were identified in the 2018 pump station master plan. Some of these improvements include a full pump replacement for both pump stations, replacement of the variable frequency drives, the motor control centers, or MCCs, the electrical switchgear, emergency generators in the case of Seaside pump station, the HVAC systems, and several other components, including new electrical service from PG&E for both facilities and significant mechanical upgrades. In May of 2023, the documents were completed, and we quickly put that combined project CP 333, CP 331 out on the street for construction. The bid documents were put out on the street. We advertised for bid on June 14th. A pre-bid walkthrough was held on June 27th, and it was very well attended. 10 prime contractors showed up. However, on bid opening date, August 3rd, only 1 bid was received. The bid was received from Mountain Cascade Incorporated, and their bid was $33,812,973. Now, this bid amount was about 4.2% above the engineer's estimate of $33,440,000. That was the engineer's estimate that Corello put together. So in this market, that is pretty close. Staff determined that, analyzed the bid from Mountain Cascade and determined that it was both responsive, and Mountain Cascade is a responsible bidder. With that, staff asks the board, would recommend that the board approve the construction contract with Mountain Cascade Incorporated for CP 330 Monterey Pump Station upgrades and CP 331 Seaside Pump Station upgrades in the amount of $33,812,973 with a $1 million contingency for a total of $34,812,973. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Directors, any questions? Director Donaldson.
Yeah, any thoughts why the other 9 didn't put a bid in?
We do have, we did some outreach on some of the other potential bidders, and there's a variety of reasons. I was told by a couple of the bidders, it is an interesting project, a very complex project over three fiscal years with a lot of full-blown removal and overhaul of systems requiring temporary systems. In the case of Seaside, there's what's called a TECT, temporary electrical control trailer, a large, expensive rented system that is essentially the electrical guts of the whole pump station. This is that needs to be staged and power the whole pump station over the course of this electrical overhaul. So that's just one example. That some of the sequencing, the shutdowns, bypass pumping, all of that good stuff is stuff that a lot of contractors, to be quite honest, get a little bit wary of. So some of the pretty good contractors from our experience were sort of saying, we are qualified, but for a 3-year project that's going to tie up our bonding for, in the neighborhood of $30 million for 3 years, we're not really feeling it. Some of the others, 2 contractors that we have experience with and that we like, Overa and SCI, Specialty Construction, they were heavily active in pursuing other projects with the agency. As we know, Overa recently was awarded the expansion project with AWPF. So some of these middle-sized contractors were feeling like they don't want to spread themselves too thin with a $20 million project and then a $30 million project. So that was some of the other reasons. Then on the opposite side of things, another contractor I talked to, they were sufficiently large to, in their opinion, to establish a presence in the Monterey area. They wanted to get 2 or 3 of the local projects in the area. So there was one contractor who was unsuccessful in the AWPF bid and as well as the injection wells bid. And for them, it was only going to be worth it to pursue this project if they had won one of those others.
Yeah, and have we worked with this company before? The one that we're recommending here?
Yes, we have worked with Mountain Cascade. They did the Pond 3 pump station project in 2020. I believe that was completed. So construction-wise and the way that project played out, budget-wise, time-wise, it went very smoothly.
Okay.
They were very good to work with. They were also the contractor that, while did not do the next project I'm going to mention, did not do it for us. They did the 9-mile pipeline for Marina Coast Water District that conveys the purified water from AWPF to the Black Horse Reservoir and in turn the injection wells. And Marina Coast had a very good experience with them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? So just for the public, they might look at this agenda item and say $34 million for a couple of pump stations. But correct me if I'm wrong, the Monterey pump station conveys all of the wastewater we receive from the city of Pacific Grove and much of Monterey and puts it in the force main and pushes it on towards our treatment facility. Is that correct?
Pushes it toward our treatment facility and gets boosted at Seaside Pump Station. So the Seaside Pump Station takes all that flow and then also adds in the flow from Sand City and Seaside and then conveys
And Delray Oaks.
Downstream, yes.
Right.
So
And the pumps in these pump stations are approximately how old?
about 40 years old.
40 years old.
Both of those pump stations came online in the early 80s. I forgot which is which. One was 83, one was 84.
And I don't know if I misheard on a tour of one of the pump stations, but I believe someone told me that some of the components that have to occasionally be replaced are no longer manufactured.
That is correct.
So we have to custom manufacture, jury rig, something like that.
That is correct. And over the years, there were a few specialty outfits that would do some of this machining for some of these specialized parts. And as the years go by, even though some of the equipment, these pumps were considered by our maintenance folks as real good old school workhorse pieces of equipment, the ability to get these replacement items is just decreasing by year.
So this project for each pump station will take a year, couple of years.
It's just under a 3.5-year project. A lot of the front end work on this project is hurry up and wait in terms of the long lead time items like the electrical switchgear, the MCCs, the VFDs. So on the front end of the project, it's going to be very heavy for submittals, shop drawings, and all that kind of stuff. There is a little bit of mechanical work at the Seaside pump station on the very front end of the project, some pipeline work and the installation of an isolation valve. But the project, the real big electrical overhaul that we're talking about here and the pump replacements doesn't begin in earnest until a late or dry season 2024.
So this next question is going to be a little bit tongue in cheek, but when the contractor pulls out the old pumps, how long will we have to tell folks on the Monterey Peninsula to never flush their commodes before we get the new pumps online?
Well, if there was a way to do that, we could probably save a lot of money on this project by not having to do the temporary pumping stuff. But unfortunately.
So unfortunately, somehow the contractor is going to have to keep all that pumping capacity online 24/7, 365 during the whole 3.5 duration of this project.
That's correct.
That might explain a little bit of the complexity and the cost.
And also why some contractors are just not feeling too motivated to take on a project like this.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Director Carbone.
Question to Paul, I guess. So the Pacific Grove pump station with the proximity to the ocean, were we going to look at moving anything further away? Is that included?
It's not, that's a great question. It's not included in this project, but engineering is also looking at moving the electrical equipment from the Coral Street pump station across the street and a little bit away. As you may remember, I think Tammy showed some pictures of it earlier this year during the storms where waves were crashing over that particular pump station. And frankly, there's a number in Pacific Grove that are very close to the water. That one in particular is vulnerable, and we have worked with the city in the past to identify some land that we can move the equipment to. And then Congressman Panetta was kind enough to do a community directed spending or funding for the Coral Street pump station. Now, you'll probably be hearing a lot more about those in the future as we address some of these more violent storms that we're seeing.
Thank you. And that was exactly, it was a Coral Street that I was referring to. Thank you.
Right. If there are no more questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Williamson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Director Garcia Arzola. We'll go out to the public. Anyone wishing to comment on agenda item 10A?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Bill Lipe from Monterey County. Thank you for putting this on for public discussion. There's been some local government agencies that have been putting very large expenditures in the consent agenda. So I appreciate the opportunity for the public to see this. And I appreciate you highlighting, why it costs so much. And I appreciate also the responses about, because I had the same question, is you got 10 to show up but only one bid. Well, now we kind of know why. I'm just curious. I think the previous pump stations lasted 40 years. Is that the estimated time life cycle for these pump station upgrades? And it was mentioned a couple of times in the presentation, responsible bidder. I'm just curious as to what defines or what the parameters are for a responsible bidder. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would you like
Staff,
us
care to
respond a certain-
address any
So
of those?
Tom, do you want to talk about actually the two terms? That's a good point. Responsive and responsible bidder. That we need to have bidders that comply with both.
So I'll, Jim, correct me if anything I say here is incorrect, but when we're putting these projects out to bid, not only are these bid documents chock full of technical stuff, hundreds and hundreds of pages on stuff that speak to the products and the sequencing and this and that, those items, as well as the more administrative requirements and the contractor's bid. I mean, these bids are pretty voluminous with lots and lots of sections, lots of information in them. So the contractor's bid package that they put together, does it address what the bid documents are asking for? That, in my understanding, speaks to the responsiveness of the bid. Now, you could have a bidder who puts together what appears to be a very responsive bid, but it would be irresponsible of that bidder if the largest project that they've ever done is, say, $2 million. Even though they crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's, provided all the information, do they have the experience? Can they take on this kind of work? There's a lot of experience requirements for these kind of projects because quite frankly, you don't want to be the guinea pig for some contractor who says, oh, gee, I want to get into public works. I want to do some of these big projects. I think I could do this. I think I could do that. Well, if you haven't hot tapped into some of these sewage force mains at 2 a.m. when the pump station is turned off for 1 hour, then that would be pretty irresponsible to be bidding on a project like this. So that's my understanding of the responsible side of the question.
Is that okay? And then in terms of the useful life, for all structures like this, for any infrastructure, there's different lifespans for the equipment, depending what it is. So, I'm sure that we can argue this or people have different opinions, but, rotating equipment like motors and pumps, probably 15 to 20 years. Electrical equipment, probably in the same. Structures, 50 to 100 years. Valves, 20 years. So each component has a little different lifespan. The fact that we've gotten 40 years on a lot of this stuff, I think to me is a testament to two things. One is the ongoing maintenance and trying to find things to repair it. And secondly, that had we had the funds, we probably would have done this project much earlier.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Bring back to the board and all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Please show 9 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstained, and 1 absent.
Thank you, Mr. Board Chair, members of the board.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to 10B.
I got that, Director Moore. Mike McCullough will be talking about award of contract for the Monterey Regional Stormwater Management Program, Mr. SWIMP, as they call it, for their public outreach and public involvement participation services. Mr. SWIMP is involved regionally. It has a lot of some of our similar member entities involved in this program, but also some that maybe fall out a little bit of our boundaries, like Carmel. But it's just a regional effort for stormwater pollution prevention, education, as well as some monitoring, things of that nature. And so they have developed a budget, and in the budget they had a contract for outreach services from Save the Whales. And so it was just a little north of Paul's Signing Authority, so we wanted to bring it to the board and have the board approve that contract. We work alongside the program, their project manager, as well as the outreach coordinator on a lot of similar type of outreach programs when we can. And they've been a good partner, and I think it's done the region really well. They've had a lot of good success in cleaning up pollution from entering the ocean. So their outreach programs are very well received. And so I'd like to bring this contract amendment to the board for approval.
And despite how it's written, it actually has no fiscal impact on Monterey One Water. We're simply approving as part of this other organization this particular?
Yeah, just as sort of a backdrop to
Transaction.
that, the Mr. Swimp program manager sits in our offices as an employee of Monterey One Water. However, they report to the board, if you will, of those cities. That is, so his position and this contract is funded through the stormwater programs of those cities. There is no fiscal impact to this agency on this contract.
All right, questions from directors? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Carbone. Is there a second? Thank you, Director Williamson. We'll go out to the public. All right, seeing none, bring it back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? We show 9 ayes, 0 noes, 0 abstained, 1 absent. We move on to informational items. Mr. Shuto. 11A, please. Or Mr. Lindell,
Lindell.
sorry.
Good evening, Chair and Board. Just wanted to announce Pure Water Monterey expansion is under construction. You may remember in July, you awarded our first bid package for AWPF expansion. That contractor got their NTP a couple of weeks ago. And the second package, which we're rebidding, we'll be getting those bids, opening those bids on September 7th. That's a Thursday after Labor Day. Hopefully we get some clean bids. We'll be back in front of you in September for that second bid package award. With that, I'd open it up to any questions in general on expansion.
Questions? How much water have we put in the ground?
How much water have we put in the ground?
Oh, we're approaching 12,000
Acre feet.
acre feet.
Wow, very good.
Oh, like I said last time, it's hard to not take that for granted, but it's 3.5 years continuous operation.
Good work. All right, if there are no questions, we'll go on to 11B.
All right. Just a quick update from the efforts related to the Monterey County tax roll for annual billings. You can see through the staff report there, we've been busy in the month of August conducting our community forums that helped us to, gather more input from the customers. You can see there we've also adding some additional forums. And said dates and programs will be available in the August board meeting. We're still in the process of getting the final date, but I know that one we have for sure is with the Cesar Chavez Library on September the 18th at 6 p.m. And we'll have that meeting in Spanish. And we're also working with Hartnell campus to have some events at the Castroville campus and then also the main campus. So we're trying to finalize that with their form to designate the sites and all that kind of stuff. So we're busy doing that. As you can see from the general forum feedbacks from the concerns that you see there, fiscal feasibility for some customers, some of the HOAs not reducing fees if they're no longer billed from Monterey One Water. So we've had a couple of concerns about that. And then we've heard from some of the property owners, as Rachel talked about, use the third party designation of passing that bill on to the renter. So there's been some concerns there. Some of the recommendations that have come out of the forums, which has been really helpful, was, if the billing change was approved, could we itemize or show in our budget where those savings are going towards for capital improvement projects? And so that was a really great idea that we picked up from some of the community members. And then also almost every community forum, they talk about the rate structure for residential homeowners that may not have a lot of volume if it's a 1 bedroom, 1 bath kind of thing. And so, we're getting every forum, we get the same comment about that. And so Fred has done some research in regards to the residential rate program and what the information that we could get from the county. And so I'm going to turn this over to Fred to let him fill in just a little section of that.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So that's really, to me, one of the exciting things about the program. We can basically, if the board ultimately approves us working with the county for this, the county actually collects a lot of great data. I know the board is really desired for us to look at some different options for residential, not just having just one billing category, but having a couple different ones based upon different criteria. The great thing about the county tax data, they collect building square footage, they collect, type of residential unit, they collect number of bedrooms, they collect number of baths. So we could really, when we're working with our third-party consultants to do our next rate study, these are some just great criteria that we could use to basically come up, with, a few different basically residential criteria, that kind of, adjust for size of the house or baths or whatever. And I've looked at a few other agencies too. They've kind of, for example, in some of their residential fees, they might break out, for example, between like townhomes, and regular size homes, or potentially, number of square feet or whatever. But basically, by using the county's tax roll system, it would make it much easier for us to basically adopt a more flexible rate structure that, from what we've heard basically from the people participating in these programs, that this is something they're really looking for from us. So I think it'd be a really advantageous for us, as part of the program. I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, just to finish up, obviously there's the same ways that the customers can provide feedback to us from the website, phone number, email. You can see there we've had, an uptick in number of responses since the last month. That's still less than, even this today, probably less than 330 total responses. One thing that we've worked with, we've asked, for an update from the county tax collector. They say that they're anticipating a negotiated final contract soon. And we asked about the timeline. When do you think you're going to go to the board of supervisors? And they have no timeline. So as we talk to the customers at these forums, it's always important to say, hey, just based on some of the information we got from our board, we're not going to move forward unless probably this payment program is implemented. So you can see there we have a couple of future presentations, League of Women Voters, and then one that I didn't put down because I just finalized it is with the Salinas United Business Association for September the 18th. And then just this week, we uploaded one of the forums from Seaside, and then in English, and then one of the forums in Spanish we uploaded to our YouTube channel. So, that's my report.
Yeah, I just want to add one quick thing. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be basically advertising this through bill inserts. So the bills that are going out basically next week will have, we'll have this information about the forums. So basically the customers from Salinas will see it in their bills that will come out in September. And then October, that'll be for the peninsula. So that's one thing I wanted to just add on.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. Thank you, Mr. March. Director Craig, I think, was first, and then Director
Thank you.
Williamson.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. The county agreed to share all that data with you?
Yeah, so the great thing, what we've done before we even started this process is both Pebble Beach and Carmel, basically, they've been in the program a number of years. And in essence, that data is considered public information. So that's something actually Carmel shared with us as far as the format goes and kind of the type of data that they get. So yes, we actually, that was one of the things.
So it has, I'll rephrase my question. Has the county agreed to share that information with you?
Well, they would, my understanding is, in essence, it's the same data they would share with anybody because it's public information. The way it works is this way. You pay a fee of basically $250, and that's the structure. That's the data that you get when you pay the fee. So yes.
But it sounds like we haven't asked them specifically yet.
I haven't asked them, but I mean, basically,
it goes to the other two entities, but we haven't asked them specifically.
So I would encourage that just to make sure, because obviously that's a strong point, but I want to make sure somebody at the tax collector's office is nodding their head and saying, yes, of course. And that's just from previous experience in other entities. I'm surprised that the county would willingly give over that data. So, and I could be horribly wrong. So yeah, absolutely. I just would like a yes or a no from Mary Zeeb or whomever's over there.
Absolutely. So what we do is we work with their IT department to get the data. And that's actually why they requested $250 because that's basically a reimbursement for their time for running the report.
Got it.
But we can absolutely follow up with it.
Got it. And then great. I just some basic feedback. I appreciate you taking to heart kind of the comments of the previous meetings and really creating a more robust outreach program. Just from the first inklings of conversations, there was quite a bit of concern over it. So I think having those community meetings are good. I also want to just bring forward and bring to your attention that Big Sur Land Trust is currently doing a survey about putting a parcel tax on the 2024 ballot potentially, which is obviously more on your property taxes. So just in the context of like timing is everything, I think we should probably, just be conscientious of what other entities are requesting.
You said Big Sur Land Trust in the 2024?
I think they're trying to take the temperature of when.
Okay.
If and when.
So parcel tax.
Or
maybe.
when, I should say.
Okay.
Taking the temperature.
Thank you, Director Craig. Director Williamson, Vice Chair Williams.
I was just wondering if there could be opportunities so I want to echo Kimberly's comments in regards to the appreciation in regards to the outreach and to see that there's some more efforts coming up. I think that's just a wonderful opportunity for us to continue to get feedback as the process moves along here. And so in regards to the videos that have been posted in English and Spanish on our YouTube channel, I'm not sure if there's opportunity to further get that messaging out. And I just give an example through our social media accounts, maybe posting it on there might be a great way for an opportunity for those of us that are on the board and otherwise to help share that and spread it through social media channels.
Well, one thing I just want to mention real quick, which we didn't mention earlier, the one feedback we've gotten from all of our meetings, which is just kind of heartening for us to hear, is that they've may not have changed their mind at all. They may still feel the same way, but they feel a lot more informed based upon our presentations. That's been a consistent theme that's come across at all of our outreaches. So just FYI.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show appreciation for helping spread that message. As Fred mentioned, we're doing bill inserts this month and next month, which would then, by doing the two, it covers the entire customer base. And on those inserts, we do reference the recordings. However, organic reach is the most powerful. So once we post those, maybe I can work with Chai and send each of you a link. And if you can then perpetuate those recordings, as Fred mentioned, I think the forums are doing exactly what they're intended to do, to engage with the public, to provide that opportunity for them to give us their feedback, so that we can ensure when we come before this board, any concerns have a solution, or we need to come to you and say, hey, this doesn't, you weigh pros and cons. And overall, yeah, I don't know that we're necessarily swaying people, but again, the point was to hear them, right? It wasn't to sway them. It was to help inform them into our thought process and give them an opportunity to share their personal experiences. And the feedback, yeah. Everybody, there's always somebody at the end who shows great appreciation, asks for the link to forward to their community. One person asked if they could go out and start handing out postcards because they thought the forum was so informative and they were disappointed their neighbors weren't participating. So yeah,
We even got a few claps from the one at Seaside.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
I also want to just highlight just our staff that's helped out, the IT staff. They've been great as we've made this a hybrid forum. Some of the most well-intended was basically a 50-50 in person and online. So that's definitely helped. And then I think with Rachel and what she said, we get these the YouTube up, people can view those as well. And it's really informative. I do the initial presentation and I can tell you, I've seen some holes glared through me initially, but as we go through the conversation and open up for Q&A, I think it's really a good have that dialogue and people do get informed. So.
Thank you. Other questions, directors? All right. Any comments from the public on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to 11C. Mr. Scioto.
Thank you, Chair Moore. So we referenced this a little bit earlier. This is just an update on the weighted vote procedure and what occurred at the projects and planning meeting. You see what before you a little bit of background. It's a subset of what was provided at the projects and planning meeting. If you had an opportunity to look at that agenda. So what came out of the meeting, as I mentioned earlier, is some direction to just brief the board where we're at, come up with more options, maybe tweak the ones from 2020 or make some other options available to the committee, and then ultimately bring it back to the board in September. At this point, the next projects and planning meeting is September 13th. The reason we wanted to get it in early September is so we had time to make any adjustments and produce a staff report to get on the September 25th board meeting. A couple of the questions that came in, I guess wanted to make sure everyone understood this. The population estimates are from the census, from the at this point, 2020 census. So certainly like for Salinas, Sand City, Monterey, it's pretty defined. Marina Coast is a little different because of their Fort Ord area that's within their service area. So they have gone to the Department of Finance in the state of California to look at their specific census tracts to report their population. The county is a little different because it's just those areas in the county that Monterey One services that aren't covered by the rest of you. So our staff has done a great job segmenting out those areas and doing a count based on census tract. I think a comment came in during the meeting going, well, what if those aren't accurate? Well, based on the resolution that happened back in 2020, that's what we're using, unless, of course, a member entity can come up with a more accurate census for their area that is from the Department of Finance in the state of California or something like that. It can't be, Acme Population Counting Company.
I loved your laugh, Jim.
So at this point, we are bringing back some of those options. As we all know, the formula ends at 100,000, which I think we found Salinas passed in 1990 plus or minus, and is now based on the census 163,000 and change. So some of the options we're looking at is how do we increase those cutoffs to increase population, or not population, weighted vote for an increase in population for those that you represent, as well as are there opportunities to look back at what was created in the 70s in that formula that has served us thus far, but frankly, it's a lot different from 50 years ago to now. And how can we move forward? I wanted to touch on two items. One you all know, I think, which is this board needs to approve it. Doesn't need to approve it unanimously. Needs to approve an option if we were going to move forward. And then it goes to every member entity's governing board. So your city councils, your board of directors, and so on. We need to get a positive out of each of those entities. Doesn't need to be unanimous from your respective city councils, but does need to be the majority for it to make the change in the JPA. And that is in reference to Section 7 of the Joint Powers Agreement on amendments. Second point on changes, it was brought up during the projects and planning meeting that in the state of California Health and Safety Code, there is a reference, Section 7350.2, to this weighted vote calculation. However, it references the Monterey Regional County Sanitation District, which is a separate but similar entity to the JPA of Monterey One Water. Our understanding at this point, and Jim can maybe say it more eloquently, is that that changes or governs Monterey Regional Sanitation, County Sanitation District, not us. So we fall under that procedure that we just discussed. Does that make sense? And is that accurate, Jim? Anything you want to
That's
add to that?
accurate. I think it's pretty simple. M1W is not governed by the statute. The statute was established for Monterey Regional County Sanitation District.
Yeah,
that was better stated.
Thanks.
Thank you.
With that, I can try to answer any questions as an information item, and we'll be, like I said, September 13th, and then from direction from the committee, bringing something back to the full board September 25th.
Questions from directors?
Question, comment? You want question?
Sure.
First?
Question, comment,
Okay.
as you wish.
So yeah, so I appreciate you bringing it forward so quickly. And I was ready to claw out on the health and safety code because I have it pulled up and it talks about like making sure that each entity is accurately represented. So I'm thrilled to hear that we can throw that out the window. So thank you for that. I actually sat and talked with my city attorney over it when that was brought up at the subcommittee meeting. For a little bit of context, the JPA, I think, was formed in 1979, which would have been the 1970 census that was used in order to formulate the original population numbers. And in 1970, the city of Salinas was 61,978 people. 1980, wish they'd waited a year because we jumped to 80,000 and they could have probably had a better indication of like the growth of the city. 1990, we jumped over that 100,000 mark at 108. That was in 1990. In 2000, we jumped to 151. In 2010, we went down to 150. And in 2020, as Paul mentioned, we were at 163. Part of my interest in this weighted vote discussion is there's 63,000 members of my community that are not represented with votes in my city. I'm trying to find a way to find unanimity, understanding sort of the guidelines of this board and certainly the interests that are represented on, with everybody here. So my thought process in having the conversation about, okay, we don't actually change the votes today, but that we create a formula that allows for the votes to be recalculated should a city hit a certain population. And I had said 175 because figuring that we're 3 years into the 2020 census, I'm not sure there are no shovels in the ground over housing in the city over the next couple of years at least, I would think. So I don't know if we'll hit that 175 number come 2030. But I think we will hit it in the following 10 years. We have a future growth area that is slated for 11,000 homes. The city is slated to grow by 50,000 people at least. And I'm trying to address a really controversial issue now before it becomes a giant food fight. And we've been, talking about arguing, use whatever term you want, over water and those issues for decades. And I suspect it will divide our community even further down the line. So making hard decisions now about what that weighted formula looks like, I think is the responsible thing to do as Marina grows, as Seaside grows, and as Salinas is certainly slated to grow. That's why I think we should be addressing it now. It doesn't impact us today. It won't impact us for 7 years, essentially. But I do think that there's an opportunity there to actually move the needle and recalculate the votes so that everybody is represented. Thanks.
Any other directors, questions or comments? Director Habino.
I agree with Kimberly in terms of 64,000 people not being represented. And I started kind of going through the numbers, and I think as a board, we need to kind of look at this through a macro lens in terms of, Salinas is a pretty diverse, large, vast community. And in terms of wastewater fees, it's roughly about half, if not more than half.
A little more.
And at that same time, it only has 27% of the voting power. Versus, if you were to maybe combine the peninsula cities, it's a little bit higher. It is 36%. So, and then I was looking at in terms of, there was other JPA weighted voting examples. One was on volumetric and the other one was on, that I saw, was financial percent contributed. So, under those two scenarios as well, Salinas would have quite a few more votes. And when I looked at the options A and B that were done in 2020, it really didn't change too much in terms of percentages for Salinas. I feel like it is still roughly 30% weighted vote. So I'd like to see some different options out there, and hopefully we can talk about that.
If I may.
Yeah. Go for it.
Because I love that you went to the percentage thing. So obviously I've been working on this since we had the meeting, and the options that I'm looking at are not exactly what you see before you. They're a little different, but I did exactly what you said. I broke it down into what percent influence each of you had from a weighted vote. And when I say you, I'm meaning member entities. And then with the options, what would the new percent influence be on this board? And then what is the delta? What's the difference from current to future? Just so, we can just be transparent in looking at it. Because generally speaking, you're right, Ken, it's relatively small. And then to your point on the growth, I did look at the AMBAG, and I know there's all these discussions on whether that's valid or not, but I think they had in the 2045 forecast had Salinas at about 177,000 people plus or minus, which if you just, I know it's never going to be linear, but it goes to your point of it based on AMBAG, it shows you getting over about the 175 in about 20 years from the 2020. So that puts it in the 2040 timeframe. Just another point to consider. So yeah, I'm looking at it that way. You will see at least 3 options. I don't want to inundate you with too many because, we can always change what is provided based on discussion. But I hope that's the type of information you're all looking for to make an informed decision.
Any other questions? Vice Chair Williams.
Yeah, I'll just make some initial comments, and I appreciate hearing from Director Craig on where she's coming from with this from a perspective of Salinas and I think what's been happening in regards to the growth of their community and trying to find a measured approach in addressing it. What I will say is it makes me think of the Electoral College or House of Representatives, right? Or no, I'm sorry, the Senate, the US Senate, right? And each state having 2 votes, and how the state of California has such a huge population when we're looking at representation and what that means. So I think that there's some overlap in regards to what we see on a national level. And I think that there's some reason to question what that looks like. So I think it's a fair conversation to have, and I look forward to what comes out of the Special Projects Committee to the board in the future. Though the last point that I'll share is the fact of the matter is, and just like how we're seeing at the national level, you can't remove politics from these conversations. And so I know that I guess part of what would be helpful is to see, is there something that's not being addressed from the perspective of Salinas residents that's not being fulfilled on the board that might help support the representation argument? Because I think that the fact of the matter is that we feel and we see and we hear a lot of pressure from the ag industry and what that means in regards to what's happening within our agency surrounding the conversation of water. And so I see that being a huge challenge for this board to be able to move something forward and get approval from every single entity because of that that political tension that just exists. And I'm just speaking to it because it's real and it's there. And so how do we get through that? How do we cut through that? How do we have that conversation in a deeper and more meaningful way? It's a conversation I think to be had outside of this conversation of representation, but just it comes up again here again. So
I think if I through the chair,
Director
I
Craig.
think, I'm trying to address it without acting like the gorilla in the room, right? I mean, the city of Salinas is representative of $13 million of the 27 million of this entity. We have 58.3% of the member entity population of this agency. And we're not particularly represented in that capacity. Everyone else on this board is, according to their member entity and to what they contribute, they have an equal amount of votes and we don't. So that's where I'm coming in and asking for some consideration, not necessarily battling, or I don't have a specific formula and plan. I have said, push it out so that it's not a big giant food fight like it was in 2020, but that, should we grow to a certain population, that automatically recalculates. Because I recognize I'm trying to work with an entity with everybody has their own separate interests. And believe me, the ag industry wants me to fight for today to change the weighted vote population. But I think the happy medium is trying to figure out what is the long-term plan and to work towards some compromise there.
Thank you. Any other comments from directors? Go out to the public in case anyone wishes to comment. Mr. Light.
Thank you, Chair. Bill Light from Monterey County. Mayor Williamson, I was thinking the exact same thing as you, the electoral college and how populate, that the whole concept around that is to weight the vote in a certain way so that a certain heavily populated area doesn't dominate the situation. And I looked at both of these scenarios, if you will, or concepts. Basically, with option A, Salinas would increase to a 33% overall vote. With option B, they'd go to 30%, both of which are increases over what they currently have, which I think is around 27 and 3/4 or something like that. So and it's pretty obvious. The city of Salinas would like to have more votes. They'd like to have perhaps not, and this is just my own sort of description of it, don't have to work quite so hard to get what they want. If it were up to me, I think option B would be fair. It gives them an increase. I don't know what population number you're going to adjust to midstream without using the census. I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but get to that 30% level. And, if there's some way you can change it down the road, you can do it. Although I do understand the difficulty in getting each one of these entities to approve this. That is a tall order. But, maybe if some of the histrionics that went on regarding Measure J and some of the voting that was going on there that looked from the outside kind of bizarre, maybe there would be more good faith to just settle with what you already have right now, or maybe increase it some for Salinas. I think you got to get to a good nature point, because I think some people feel, I think people on the peninsula in particular feel like they don't want to give Salinas the authority because they've been shafted. So I just say that these are all my opinions, just personal opinions. I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody but myself here, but I think you should look at it, and I think you should probably do something, although it is difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Light. Anyone else?
Just throwing out just throwing out ideas. Let me just say that. Looking at it and the way the vote breaks down, there's also an inequity with Salinas, but there's some inequity here with cities on the peninsula. And for example, Marina and Seaside and Monterey are all about the same. And I don't mean to pick on PG, but it's about half the population, yet it has 2/3 of the votes. So whether or not there's a possibility to work something out, maybe increasing some votes here on some of the other end as well, an extra vote, and then you add a little bit more to Salinas somehow, just trying to find some way to to balance this out in some possibility.
All right, thank you, Director Church. We see.
Perhaps,
Sorry.
you add 3 votes here for those 3, and then you add, 1 each for
Yeah.
Angus, and then 3 for Salinas. And then you would have somewhat of a balance, but yet more of a little more equity into there, I think.
Thank you for the suggestion, Director Church. We go to Mr. Bunn.
Thank you. Interesting conversation, and I appreciate the comments from Mayor
We're having
Craig.
a little difficulty hearing you. Don't know whether your mic
you hear me?
is not picking you up well or whether it's us here. Give us just a moment.
Go ahead, Mr. Bunn.
Can you hear me now?
A little better.
Okay. Just real quickly, I appreciate the comments from Mayor Craig and Mr. Hybino, and I just think whatever formula you arrive at in the future, you're going to have great political difficulty with it if it doesn't reflect reality in terms of representation and equity. And also, the longer you delay on this issue, the more difficult it's going to become. So good luck with your conversations going forward.
All right, thank you very much. All right, seeing no further comments, we'll move on to staff reports.
So just a couple quick ones, and I'm actually going to ask others to chime in. On August 7th, we had the opportunity to have Assemblywoman Dawn Addis come to the plant for a tour. So appreciate her taking time while she was in district to drop by and see what we do. It was in conjunction with the water management district next door. And then another tour we recently had, it was great to talk with them. It just, God, was that last Friday? Was Leadership Monterey County. And, great group of people. Always, some of the questions are always interesting from that group. And, they went and did the tour as well. I wanted to mention, I think we've all seen in the news recently that there has been an uptick in COVID. We've had a few incidents at Monterey One Water. We stopped doing, remember we had embarked upon doing sampling and testing for COVID at the wastewater treatment plant, like plants throughout the country have been doing. When it subsided and we actually had a term with, was it Institute of Health or we stopped doing it in July. Then, of course, we stopped doing it in July and I get an email from Montage Health going, hey, can you send me that information again? So I just wanted to mention this to the board that because our sort of contract with them stopped, we weren't using the data for our use, and it does not appear that others were using it either. We did stop. If you would like us to reconsider, we can certainly do that moving into the future. Also wanted to bring up, I think Chai sent out a doodle poll for strategic planning, trying to get all 10 of us or 10 of you and then us in the same room at the same time can be difficult. So it'd be helpful if you could respond to that doodle poll and let Chai try to work her magic. And then as I forget, I think Mr. Leip brought it up that the Monterey County Water Resources Agency has initiated a financial audit in reference to SVRP, the Salinas Valley Reclamation Project, Castroville Seawater Intrusion Project, and the Salinas River Diversion Facility aspects of our business. We have started that, and I would like Fred at some point just to chime in some details of that. And then that's all I had. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically, they've started their first phase of the audit. So just to kind of remind the board, what they're doing is they're looking at basically a 4-year period from fiscal year 18-19 through fiscal years 21-22. So the first part is they want to just basically get an understanding, of our operations and how we account for things financially. So I've had actually a couple 1-hour discussions with the auditors. They've actually done some interviews with staff as well too. So, and there's a bunch of documents that they requested from me as well too, which I'm in the process of getting them. So once they've kind of compiled that all together, then they will basically request some additional documents from us which is basically kind of their second phase of the audit. So they're planning to come back to us by basically the end of October with a draft report. And we'll continue to give you guys updates, at our board meeting as to, if there's any findings or any things like that. But that's kind of where we're at right now with the audits.
Yeah, real quickly, I've got a $2 million situation going on at the Headworks. The project that is coming to a close, which was the gravity bypass at the Headworks to prevent any overflows. Part of the job of that contractor was to remove some mortar on a 42-inch interceptor, which goes into the headwork structure. They started removing it, and there was significant corrosion in the steel cylinder, which is bar wrapped. In some areas, up to 80% of the steel is corroded. So we've got Corolla, who is very familiar with all of our headwork process and infrastructure, and they're doing a design. And as soon as the design is over in the fall, we will be going out for construction. They will be needing to replace about 27 feet of an elbow, but the cost is coming from the bypass, because we have to basically bypass all three interceptors around the Headworks junction structure. So that will be coming to the board. And no, we did not plan it. We didn't know about it. And so it will be coming out of contingency or reserves. So I don't have any other good news. Thank you.
And the reason we didn't know about the corrosion was it was behind some kind of coating or cement or.
And it was underwater. This is the first time we've got to look at this thing for a while.
And that water is not nice water that anyone would care to dive in.
Well, no, and it's hard to shut off.
Right.
Without a substantial project.
So I would like to thank our crews. We basically did 2 shutdowns because there's a liner within that 42-inch. That the reason why the existing contractor wouldn't touch it is because they couldn't plug it to do what they needed to do. They said it was not viable, etc. So we went in there in our own crews on 2 different shutdowns. We basically removed this liner to see if we could get a plug in there. So we've been doing some work to try and continue on with the original contractor, because they're kind of in a holding pattern until we could get that 27 feet of the elbow replaced.
All right. Thank you. Any other staff reports?
Kind of hard to follow that one, right? I mean,
Better be good news, Mike. Better be good.
So a couple weeks ago, Rachel and I went to San Diego to participate in a kind of industry meeting from the California Association of Sanitation Agencies. Here at Monterey One Water, we're not like the largest fish in the pond. And so when we go to some of these industry events, it's really interesting to see how well we kind of stack up because of some of our experiences, and especially here of late. And so Rachel was involved with the communications committee. I'm on the legislative regulatory committee.
Hold it. You're what of the legislative committee?
I'm currently the chair, hopefully to get ready to get off.
Lost over that.
Yeah. And so just, it's good to be involved with your other cohorts in the industry, and just to see a lot of their same issues. We have the same issues here. So good to network there. Rachel and Johanna have done yeoman's work in regards to this grant that we talked about that goes in tomorrow. We've gotten letters of support from Wendy Root Askew, Senator Laird, Assemblyman Addis, Water Management District, and then hopefully Region. And so, we got United Way of Monterey County to be our community business organization, or community-based organization. And so it's really going to be a great application. The thing is that what Rachel's really struggled with is the word count. So they limit you to how much words you can put in your application. So it's really dynamic, and they've just done an incredible job. So we're really proud of them, as well as conducting other meetings for some of the other grants that we've submitted. So it's been pretty tough. And then just real quick, as we went through the Pure Water Monterey project, you've kind of heard Allison and Paul, we kind of go through some of and Dave Lindell, we went through some of our issues with getting log removal credits and residents' time in the aquifer and things like that. And so, you know, I started talking at one of these meetings that we went to about, hey, you know, well, how can we set up a template for other entities that come behind us to see if there's a way that, you know, it can be standardized throughout the states and we don't have to go all through this back and forth. And so that idea has gained a lot of traction. And one of my other side jobs is I'm doing some fundraising for that event. And what we've done is we've raised around $250,000 from other organizations, big or small, private and public, to leverage that money to do a whole scale study that will hopefully develop that template for each of our treatment processes. So, you know, if you're using RO, if you're using advanced oxidation, here's the processes that you would get to get certain amount of credit. And so the industry is just clamoring for this. Everybody we talk to say, yes, sign us up. And, you know, because it's, and mainly right now it's for indirect potable reuse, but we think it's going to be the foundation for potentially direct potable down the road. So I don't know if Paul wants to talk anymore, but it's just, we're involved in that process and we're just a little fish in that process, but we've done really good work and raised a lot of money to go forward.
Thank you, Ms. Bacala. Any other staff reports? All right, we go to agenda item 13, board member comments. Any board member comments?
I would just share that I think it would be helpful to at least look at where the opportunities exist in regards to expanding the COVID testing. I mean, we are seeing an uptick. We don't know what the future holds in that. And so I would be interested in seeing what that looks like. I don't want it to be too cost prohibitive for us, but it's also very useful data. I mean, we hear Montage is reaching out to us for it. That can help ensure public health and safety. So I think it's an important thing that we don't just move away from it, that there's an opportunity to continue that.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing no other, just a quick, we appreciate the public having patience with us tonight with our technical glitch here. We will, of course, officially assign the blame to our internet service provider, whoever that may be. But we thank you very much for your patience with tonight's little glitch there. So we go to public comment on closed session items. We have 2 closed session items. Does anyone from the public wish to comment on those closed session items? All right, seeing none, we will go into closed session. We'll take what, 5-minute recess might be needed. Back in closed session. So it is 9:13 p.m. and we are out of closed session and we have nothing to report. Is that correct, Mr. Gilpin?
Correct. There's no reportable action this evening.
Thank you very much. So we stand adjourned until our next meeting, which is scheduled for September 25th. Thank you.